Today on the Salad Day. Good morning, everyone, again, and this is FCT Brief, and we are live from our studio here in Abuja. Now, our spotlight today is on achieving effective surveillance and border control in Nigeria. With rising security challenges, including terrorism, smuggling, and irregular migration, countries around the world are stepping up their border security efforts. For many, effective surveillance and control of national borders has become a matter of sovereignty, safety, and stability. In Nigeria, for instance, the over 4,000 kilometers of land borders with neighboring countries like Niger, Cameroon, and Benin Republic remain difficult to police due to rugged terrain, limited manpower, and porous crossings.
The challenge is multifaceted. It's not just about closing borders. It's about smart surveillance using drones, satellite imagery, biometrics, and advanced communication systems to detect and prevent illegal crossings and illicit trade. Border control is no longer just a security issue. It is an economic, humanitarian, and diplomatic matter that requires strategic, sustainable solutions. And to further deepen the conversation, we have in the studio two gentlemen here. One of them is an artificial intelligence and cybersecurity consultant, Hanil Hamisu Jafaru, and he's right here in the studio with us. We also have ACG James Sunday, retired. He is also a border security management expert. It's good to have you here in the studio, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
Sorry, excuse me.
Being here.
Well,
Okay.
just before we jump straight into the conversation, we'll have a short clip to play from the Chief of Defense Staff. Let's watch this short clip.
Pakistan fenced 1,350-kilometer border with Afghanistan. That was the only time they had peace. Saudi Arabia and Iraq, 1,400 kilometers fenced completely. Can we start thinking of fencing our borders? We have 1,500 kilometers with Niger Republic, 1,900 kilometers with Cameroon. Chad is there. All over us, surrounded by Francophone countries, and the Sahel is heating up.
All right, that was the Chief of Defense Staff there speaking on fencing Nigeria's border. Now, I will begin with you, ACG James Sunday. You heard what the Chief of Defense Staff has said, fencing Nigeria's borders as a way of securing the country. Considering the vast borders that we have as a country, do you think this is actually feasible, or do you think this is just wishful thinking?
As a professional who has been on the field, the border control and border management is beyond the issue of structural erection. Yes, the three elements of border security has to do with the wall, it has to do with technology, it also has to do with the manpower. That's the three elements of border security. But when we talk about the border has two components: the border management component and then the border security component. The border management component has to do with the strategic position of a country, which has to do with the executive of the border management agency, what they are doing administratively to ensure a secure border. And when we talk about border security, we are talking about the tactical and operational level, where the field officers that are sent there are supposed to be able to be skillful in handling facilities that can secure the border. So when we look at these two elements, both the border management and the border security, we will discover that border is not just about fencing. Yes, we have a large expanse of borderline. From the north, that's Niger and Nigeria. We have from the east, Chad and Cameroon, and we also have from the Benin Republic side. Totally about 3,960 kilometers. So, agreed, the senior military officer, who is the CDS, having been a field officer in Maiduguri, he must have the border experience. But the practical aspect of border management is within the purview of the Nigerian Immigration Service. Because the Nigerian Immigration Service happen to be, by design, the gatekeeper of the nation. Okay. And when we talk about fencing of border, we must also consider the economic, social, and political value and benefits that will accrue to the country if the border is managed adequately by dispensing the elements of the border. Yes, if the country has enough money to build a border of about 3,960 square kilometers, or about 3,960 meters, if you multiply it by $1,000, let's say $1,000 is the exchange rate, we'll have about $3,960 million at $1,000. If it's about 1.5, about $1,500, it will give us about $5,940 million to erect a structure about 6 meters high.
Okay. That is huge and very important in what we're discussing now. But Mr. Jafar, let me come to you with this. You are an IT expert. We're talking about erecting walls. He talked about the three components: the manpower, the walls, the technology. We're in the AI age. How effective can technology be deployed, AI be deployed, in helping us to manage our borders?
Okay, so excuse me. The challenge is not largely about the border. Why the border management is quite important, and technology is a very strong tool when it has to do with border management, which to a large extent we've not effectively implemented. There are a whole lot of areas that are not being manned when it has to do with borders. So if you don't have offices in those areas, but there are borders where you can just walk in and walk out without having immigration officers there. So if we don't cover the management aspect, the focus is largely on major borders. There are minor borders that gives room for people to come in and flow out of the country without anyone being there. So if you put technology in those major borders and you forget about the minor borders, it's going to be, it's as though that nothing has been done, because what you just succeeded in doing is managing the bulk part of it and allowing those minor areas where people can still flow in and flow out. However, when it has to do with artificial intelligence, now focusing on the major borders where most of this technology would be. Now, but if the wall is erected, that's going to help in managing the minor borders thing. But looking at how technology can be of great effect, AI is a huge technology that is currently the talk of the town, and implementing AI in border management is a huge thing. One area that AI can help to do is in the area of facial recognition. We have a whole lot of these terrorist guys or all these criminals that tend to pass through the border. So if AI is deployed without having to have those immigration officers there, an AI technology or a camera that has been embedded with AI can actually capture the face of somebody who happens to be a criminal, cross-check it amongst the database of criminals that have been enlisted as wanted criminals, and raise an alarm. So that's one area that AI can help out with. Secondly, AI can help out with management. We can actually pinpoint to know who and who gets into the country and who goes out of the country with AI-embedded drones and AI-embedded cameras. Now, looking at it from the aspect of drones now, drones are also very strong border patrol agencies. So we begin to have artificial intelligence drones who can be moving around patrolling the borders against having their human counterpart doing that border patrol. Drones will not be the one doing the border patrol, and we've seen that in most countries of the world where drone is serving as an effective tool for border patrol. So technology cannot be excluded in this old design of the wall erection, and it's something I think we should prioritize beyond the management aspect of it.
Well, ACG Sunday, you just gave us a cost breakdown of what it would mean if Nigeria should perhaps consider the idea of building physical walls around the borders. But do you think that the executive has engaged the National Assembly enough with this kind of cost? Because we see huge budgetary allocation being made for security on an annual basis. But I've never ever heard this breakdown given, you know, in the budget defense and everything. Do you think the immigration has maybe tabled this before the National Assembly as a suggestion or an idea?
I'm not speaking on behalf of the service now because I'm no longer the service PRO. I'm speaking from the point of an analyst, a researcher, and someone that has spent 35 years in service. So my analysis is based on it's an estimated analysis based on what I know internationally avails. We cannot continue to see border as a problem without providing solution, and that's why I'm here and others are always here. Let me start with the issue of the small and big border, because it's very, very important for this clarification. There is no small border and there's no big border. Any act of thinking a border is small or another one is big is an act of compromise. So for the purpose of correction, my brother, there's no small border, there's no big border, because even as of last week, at Baji, along Badagry and Semi, and a dissident that was trying to escape the country, having committed a lot of heinous crime in Enugu, was intercepted by an officer of the Nigerian Immigration Service by an act of intelligence sharing. And if that border, Baji and along Badagry, was to be taken as a small border, this person will have escaped without being taken note of. So we don't have any small border, we don't have big border.
All right,
we consider border as a very strategic area for us to man, and it must be manned effectively.
Okay. ACG, you left off talking about paying clarification that there is no small border and there is no big border. Every border is very important. Now, as a country, with our limited resource, if we have to place things on the scale of preference, we're talking about building walls across all our borders. We're talking about technology. We're talking about deploying the manpower. Now, which will you say will be the most appropriate to pursue, minding the fact that we have, I think, a technology center domicile at the immigration headquarters? What are the facilities in there? We talked about the MIDAS. What is the capacity of the MIDAS we presently have? What can it help us achieve? Is it that it is not that effective to help us man our borders, or there are acts of sabotage of the MIDAS, of the whole concentration of technology in the technology center here in Abuja?
The Nigerian Immigration Service has come of age. The MIDAS, that's Migration Information and Data Analysis System, is a technology deployed to be able to, one, capture, that's an individual or a migrant at the point of entry, to store, to disseminate, and to also keep the data of such a migrant. At the point of entry, once the individual is captured, the information is sent into the central server and it is stored, both for policy and for official administrative analysis and disposition. So the MIDAS is a very, very important technology that Nigerian Immigration Service was able to emplace far back 2018-2019, and it is very effective in managing our border surveillance activity, capturing and identification of migrants coming to the country. But the major important area in the area of MIDAS is the skill and competency of officials manning the system. And we have well-trained ICT officers that I know, as somebody that was head of media, as at the time the MIDAS was officially launched, that were deployed to handle these facilities at the airports and all the various entry points where this system is being deployed. And effectively, we are getting results real time. So the MIDAS is like a virtual border management system that doesn't need a physical structure being seen, but a facility that's deployed as a technology. So the manpower is what the service needs to improve upon, to train more and more in the area of managing, because the world is a global village. Everything is going ICT and E. So for the purpose of the success that we're expecting, apart from the fiscal wall, which government may decide to, because it's a government policy and nobody can stop it if there's a decision to that effect. But the technology is very, very important. And then the manpower. There must be training and retraining of these officers manning this system. And then the system should also recognize the fact that once an officer is trained on a system, deploying them out to other part of the service may jeopardize the system. And this is what happens from time to time. An officer is trained on a specialized assignment, and suddenly you discover that it's either posted to the airport, or posted to the passport office, or posted elsewhere. There must be professionalization of the system. Right. There must be skill development, and people must be able to specialize on a specific thing for us to have success in what we are doing, because the whole world is going professional, and we cannot be taking officers as if we are borrowing one from this side and taking them here. Not even by priority, but by virtue of national interest. Let us remove personal interest from our mind. Deployment of officers should not be on face identification. It should be based on competency and ability to dispense the skill. All
right. Mr. Jafaru, you just heard ACG Sunday talking about training and retraining of immigration officers. And we are now in the digital age, and, you know, the AI is all over, penetrating into different sectors of the economy and our daily lives. You think Nigeria is making proper use of this technology, emerging technology, in terms of security and its management?
Well, to a large extent, we're doing the best we can, comparing ourselves with other African countries. Nigeria seems to be one of the countries with an AI strategic document, which helps to give us guide on how to go about it. But compared to other parts of the world, there are a lot of things that we've not done. Countries like Europe already has their own AI act that has been enacted. US has their own US has the algorithmic act. They also have the US AI Bill of Rights. So Singapore has their own AI move. We don't have, as a country, we don't have an AI governance framework that we align with. The US has the US AI risk management framework. China has a synthetic protection document. So comparing with other parts of the world, there is a whole lot of work that needs to be done. We've not been able to do that. What we currently have is just the AI strategic document, and we have the NIC, which is the National AI and Robotic Center that is underneath that. So we need to do a whole lot of work there. So now, just to clarify, when it has to do with what the ACC made mention regarding posting officers that has been trained. So as a cybersecurity consultant, we usually recommend that. And the reason is because we don't advise persons to stay in one department or in one area for a long, if not, it becomes a breach. And it becomes a loophole that can be capitalized on. So what is usually recommended is after a long period of time, you move the person out of that place so that a new person comes in after necessary check. That's from a security perspective, so that the technology itself cannot become the access point for criminals to be able to gain access. We're looking at it from cyber attackers, for example. So now, as a country, when it has to do with security and AI, we've not done anything. Nothing has been done. We don't have the Nigerian military does not have an AI center that helps them to do AI research. AI largely starts with research. Second, we don't have data, because before you do any AI application or AI, before you embed AI into any infrastructure, you must train the AI to a large extent with data, and we don't have data. As a country, we have a whole lot of data here and there, but there is no unified data, even though NIMSI is trying to bring that unified data on a personal ground. But beyond that, there needs to be data that we would use to train an AI, because the data that you use to train the AI is what determines what the AI brings out. So if we don't use accurate data, if we don't use balanced data would mean that you are bringing 50% of this demography, you're bringing 50% of this demography, bringing them together to train an AI. Because if you train an AI, let's say, for example, with 70% of female data and 30% of male data, the tendency for the AI to carry out prediction would always tend towards the female data because it has more data. It has data that was used to train it. So we need to begin to look for how we can get accurate data, clean those data, representative data that capture all demography. If you train an AI data with more of a northern data or a specific tribe data, more than other tribes, the prediction that the AI will give to you would be largely towards the tribe that has more of the data. So the data needs to be balanced. The data needs to have high representation and all that. So we don't have that data, and it's something we need to do. If we don't do that, we may be lagging behind in terms of adopting this technology.
Okay, SCG. There was a time globally that the strength of a nation's military is measured by the number of manpower they have. At the time also, we now realize that it is not just about the manpower, it's about the capacity, probably your air power or your technology you deploy that gives you the strength. Now, let's look at our own capacity in managing our border. At what point can we begin to effectively use technology? Like now, you talked about the MIDAS. MIDAS, I guess, is effective where it is deployed. So areas where MIDAS is not deployed, border points where MIDAS is not deployed, what happens in those areas? Can we have other means of technology to help man those areas? I'm saying, do we have to have manpower in those areas? I mean manpower stationed in those areas before we have the control over such borders?
Well, severally, professionals and specialists have advised that deployment of drones is very, very important because it can cover a large area. Then there's need for intra-service cooperation. There's need also for inter-service cooperation, and there's need for international cooperation. These three elements of border management will bring relationship between agencies, will bring relationship between countries, so that the technology you don't have, other country that you have relationship with, they will have it and will be shared. That's why you see the success with Interpol. The Interpol platform, I-247 platform, which I was private to be the pioneer head of the Nigerian Immigration Service desk Interpol assignment. For 2 years, I was on that desk, and we share real-time information based on what avails technologically. I work close to 100 files in a day, and sometimes more, trying to do diffusion analysis for the NCB headquarters, that's Nigerian Police Force headquarters, where they house the NCB for the Interpol. So these three border management components must be in place, even if we don't have the capability. Intra-service cooperation, inter-service cooperation, and international cooperation for the ability to be able to share the technology that we don't have. We have also the geospatial space, which is being handled by the Center for Defense Space Administration. It is an area that Nigerian Immigration Service can take advantage of. We also have the Obasanjo Center for Satellite System. We also have the NILDA. So these are areas where collaboration will bring results. And back to the ICT issue. The deployment of officers, like I said earlier on, is to give professionalism. Because, like you are an AI or an ICT specialist, can you be deployed to go and teach history or economics? Just because you have been an ICT person, you have been there for long? It's all about the spirit of, first, the Nigerian series first, and patriotism. I was trained as a head of media, as a media officer for immigration, right from the command level. I started from Rivers, I became zonal PRO, and I became the national public relations officer. That was why I was able to dispense effectively my assignment. So if we are saying because somebody is on the ICT and it is to be deployed out, it can still jeopardize the system, because any system you are used to, you can, particularly the ICT, it can be tampered from outside. That's why we have hackers. So we should not rule out the issue of patriotism. We should not rule out the issue of Nigerian first. We must adapt a system that is working, and then when the officers are being rewarded adequately, and then the supervisor is being tasked, definitely any abuse, there must be an action review that will show that this is where the fault is. But for me, the way forward is technology, technology, and technology. And then if the border fencing is something that government takes important, then...
All right, let's just take a quick breather. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
Introducing the new Jig Sachet. Whitening your whites have never been more affordable. Now you can keep whites shining brighter and disinfect by killing 99.9% of germs on your floors and other surfaces. Just jig it with Jig Sachet.
It's still TVC Breakfast, and we're on FCT Brief. We're still discussing border security. I'd like to ask, it seems that so much attention is, and I'm directing the question to you, is being paid to, the land borders because of the threat it has to our national security. But we also forget, the air borders. A lot of infiltration comes in from there, drug trafficking, and a lot of that. Do you think the Nigerian force is doing enough to protect the country from infiltration, especially in terms of drugs, and also looking at cyber security as well? You're also a cyber security expert. Do you think that we're beefing up our, defense in terms of cyber security? Okay,
so looking at it from let me. Okay, now when it has to do with the air borders, it's all about the technologies that is available. So if you have the technologies available, I believe they would be able to carry out an effective manning, because the air borders is you have to be there to man it. And like he made mention of the geospatial angle to things, which needs to be capitalized on, because that is more of like using satellites to beam up on the surface of or the geographical location of a country to know what is happening, and you can actually carry out some of these things. The only satellites that we have largely as a country is the communication satellite, and I think the monitoring satellites. We don't have, there are specific satellites that you can have for this purpose, where things happening can actually be captured live, and you can use that. That's what most countries use to carry out rescue operations when their citizens are kidnapped in another country.
Cyber security?
No, I'm talking about, so now for cyber security, we're doing the best that we can. We're doing the best that we can when it has to do with cyber security, but a whole lot of work needs to be done when it has to do with cyber security, starting from the fact that let me even reference Dr. Alan Glenn, which made mention of the fact that cyberspace is now becoming the fifth dimension of warfare. Before now, the cyberspace was just considered to be a space where people trade, but in 2008, Dr. Alexander Glenn wrote a paper, and in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Defense and NATO, to integrate cyberspace into to be part of the operational warfare domain. So now that aspect made mention of 4 areas that needs to be integrated. The first area is cyber operations, where attacks is carried out. The second area is cyber intelligence, which we have not largely capitalized on. The third area is cyber information or information warfare, and the fourth area is cybercrime. We need to begin to look. We have always focused on cybercrime. The remaining 3 domains has not largely been focused on in this country, and it's something I think we need to look at. Unfortunately,
we run out of time. There's still more to discuss, but there's no time. Time is not our friend. But we must say thank you so much for the contributions you've made so far. It is a pleasure speaking with you both. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Tijesu. Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thanks so much.
All right.